All right, let's jump into the news, man. We got this story from The Hill. Russia suspends only remaining nuclear treaty with U.S. Russian President Vladimir Putin declared Tuesday that Moscow was suspending its participation in the new START treaty, the last remaining nuclear arms control pact with the United States, sharply upping the ante amid tensions with Washington over the fighting in Ukraine. Okay, guys, it's so difficult. I can't, look, if you're gonna nuke, just do it, okay? It's the waiting I can't stand. Mm-hmm. We've been sitting here for a year with these guys going like, ooh, I'll nuke you. Don't you do it. And then we keep doing these shows where they're like, oh boy, oh man, they're threatening us, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
So I'm kidding.
I'm okay with the waiting.
I'm okay, yeah.
It's not that I want anyone to be bombed, but I'm running out of ways to say amid rising tensions. Like, as things continue, right? Like, I can't say it the same way 100 times. And to that extent, like, I assume the American public is also exhausted. It's been over a year at this point. We've hit the year mark. When are we going to see the other boot drop? Like, how long do we just stay in perpetual tension?
They tricked us. They've got us being here, being like, come on already.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Weird.
Yeah, you're pro-war now, dude.
Yeah, right? No, but the scary thing is that we're desensitized to it. Yeah. This news comes out and people just shrug at it like, oh, because it's what were we talking about the other day? You know, nobody sits there watching the grass grow and then eventually just goes, whoa, the grass got too long. No, you ignore it. And then one day you walk outside and you go, oh, the grass is getting long, better mow it. And that's what's happening with this. It's incrementally getting worse, but not enough to where anybody actively is freaking out or people are shutting down government, like with protests or anything like that. They're ignoring it. And as long as they keep slow rolling it the way they do, it will just escalate to that point. It's not going to be one day the air raid sirens go off and a nuke drops on Kiev and we're like, wow, I can't believe it's happened. By the time an actual ICBM hits a city, we're going to be like, oh, another one? It's going to be incremental to the point where people are just like, well, that's war. I mean, look at what's going on in Ukraine right now that's been going on for a year with you know, the air raids, the missile strikes, the misfires hitting Poland. There's been so much war. And the crazy thing to me is 50 years from now, they will write about the Ukraine-Russia conflict, probably the NATO-Russia conflict, because it's going to escalate. We're in it right now, and it seems like non-existent, far away. It's been so gradual that we are not shocked that there is a land war in Eastern Europe at this point. We're bored with it. That's the scary thing.
Well, and we're not even talking about the Middle East at all. So, which is not like there's nothing going on there.
There's tons of stuff going on, but I think we just got this slow boil to the point where everyone is completely used to the bathwater, right? I mean, I remember writing about, you know, the months leading up before Russia invaded. There's troops on the border. There's troops on the border. There's troops on the border. Russia says it's not a big deal. Russia says it's just a military exercise. And then, like, they talked to Biden, and it just went on. And eventually, you know, it felt like a big moment in time, but then we continued on. We know there's conflict. We know there's mounting geopolitical tension everywhere, but to what end, right? If you are American, if you're an American going about your day-to-day life, like there isn't a major change. It's not like Russia has now also invaded Poland. They're staying where they are, and so therefore it doesn't feel like an escalation. When you learn about war retrospectively, you're able to say, you know, even though things happen over 3 or 4 or 5 years, you learn about them in quick succession, so it feels faster.
I have a friend out in LA who I'm not going to name his name because it's what he said to me. I think is absolutely ridiculous. We'll call him Bill for the sake of the argument. He has 2 kids. They're like 10 and 7. And like, dude, do you want to send your kids over there? Because if you really think Ukraine is Ukraine, get out Putin. You're willing to send them over there? You want him to see his legs get blown off by a mortar?
What do you say?
I didn't ask. I'm asking you right now, dude. Are you willing to put your kids over there? Because that's the direction.
Look, come on, man. You know, this is the thing that's so tiring. These liberal types who wave the flags, of course they would never send their own kids.
I don't think you have a choice. If you set this ball in motion, gravity takes over. You can't stop it.
Listen, these are people who gorge themselves on ho-hos and ding-dongs and then demand that you pay for their health care.
And the worst part is that's not even this guy. This guy's like legit, but he's in it. He's in that liberal state of LA, like willing to throw his children away because of Joe Biden. Like Joe Biden told him so. I don't get it, man. You think that East Palestine, Ohio is bad? Imagine if that was intentionally done to the city 9 times a day to 9 different cities by a foreign government that you have no control to stop. That's
Yes.
that's the precipice.
And imagine you have one time in East Palestine happens to only 5,000 people. And the president says, I will not go there, and then secretly travels to a foreign country halfway around the world to give $500 million to. We could not get action on Flint. We could not get action on Newark and Pittsburgh. And it was the left being like, yo, fix these things. Joe Biden snaps his fingers to hop on a plane and fly to Ukraine for $500 million for a country most people can't even find on a map. I like Ukraine, man. I don't like what Russia's doing. I get it. There's conflict. We talk all day and night about Burisma, the energy sector, Nord Stream, all that stuff. But it's just really gut-punching demoralization when the president outright says, I will not visit East Palestine. These people, you just got to understand about this train crash. Benny Johnson, do you guys see this video? He went out and gave 20 grand. He found the 20 houses surrounding, the closest 20 houses surrounding the disaster. He gave each of them $1,000. That's really great. I'll do the Hassan-ism of, does it really have to be some commentator to go and give money to these poor people? Why can't Joe Biden, why can't the government do anything to help these people? I pay taxes. I have no problem with the government being like, yeah, a portion of those taxes are going to go to make sure that this disaster is cleaned up. Because it's kind of like, hey, we're paying for something, right? No. Not only will he not go there, he'll go and give your money away to a foreign country for a war that we don't know anything about or why it's happening. And they try and convince us, we got to stand with Ukraine. For what reason are we at war in Ukraine? For what reason? I mean, I know. It's energy conflict. It's Nord Stream. It's Gazprom. It's the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. It's U.S. It's NATO expansion. It's U.S. global empire. It's NATO expansion. It's Western expansion. For what reason do we not provide even a tiny bit of relief to the people of East Palestine?
Yeah. Well,
so Benny Johnson, shout out, $20,000. That's I know Benny would do more if he could. He probably was like, what can we afford sparing this budget? And so he breaks down where the money comes from. And so that's it. It's up to a culture and political commentator to try and give money to some of these people. Can we take that $500 million to Ukraine and even 1% of it to the people who are surrounding this disaster? Because here's what you got to understand about that. They've lost everything. Those houses are worth $0 now. No one is going to buy a house contaminated with vinyl chloride and, whatever glycol garbage is all over the place.
I think it's more than just culture commentators. Michael Reagan, the head of the EPA, was supposed to go to a climate change tour in Africa with Idris Elba. And then on the 17th, Trump announced that he was going to go to East Palestine. On the 18th, the EPA announced that tour was canceled. On the 19th, Reagan is like, oh, I'll be in Palestine East Palestine this coming week. And then he announces, oh, we're going to hold Norfolk Southern accountable for what they've done. We're going to make them pay for it, which I'm not saying that company shouldn't, but this is the same federal government that said that the people of East Palestine didn't qualify for FEMA relief, right? They weren't enough of a disaster to get assistance. But then when we have an unrelenting, especially conservative-leaning media that's like, no, we want to talk about it. We want you to go there. We want you to drink the water. Then eventually the EPA is like, yeah, we've got to hold that private company accountable. I'm not saying that's the wrong step. I'm just saying, why were you thinking about going to Africa to talk about climate change when we have our own disaster in our backyard?
This is like, I don't think that waiting for someone to do it is they're gonna do it. But there's a technology where you can clean up oil spills with magnets. This is developed about a decade ago. CNN reports on it. You type up "clean up oil spill with magnet" and it'll come up. You put iron into the water, and then the oil coagulates around the iron,
but
and then you put the magnet in it. There is oil. There's lots of stuff in it, exactly. But it's a start. I mean, it's a suggestion that maybe we can do something to clean this up.
I mean, Ian, it's not that far from your hometown, so
no, it's like 70 miles from my hometown.
I think that's pretty close. So maybe you need to go. At some point, I'm sure you will. Maybe if you go home and visit. I think you're due a visit, dude.
I thought about going there just to smell it, to know, is this going to kill people? Like, because unless you go, then I was like, I don't want to be there. I don't want to hurt my lungs. And I'm like, what? That's what Biden say? Did he actually say I'm not going there, or did he just not say anything?
It was Karine Jean-Pierre, I'm pretty sure, was asked, and they said he has no plans to.
That's because he's too sickly to handle the air?
No, they just no plans to visit. I don't know if it was Karine Jean-Pierre, but the administration answered that they had no plans, and then everyone got really mad because Trump then announced, I will be going to visit. It's remarkable, man. Trump, for all of the awful things people have complained about, actually cares about this country. And Joe Biden is representing some kind of occupying force that cares more about Western power expansion than the people who are doing the hard work to make this place exist. Donald Trump struck the perfect balance, in my opinion. He cared about foreign policy. He was negotiating peace deals. He wanted NATO to pay their fair share. He wasn't ignoring foreign policy. But he also made sure that the support structure, the infrastructure of this country, its people, were being taken care of. Perfect? Of course not. Joe Biden and the Democrats completely reject and ignore the support structure of this country and what it represents, the people. And then he decides to do a surprise trip to smile. I mean, it is a degree of triggered that I am to see Biden hugging Zelensky and smiling, and then watching Benny Johnson's video where he's like, here's the best I can do, $1,000. And I'm like, $500 million to Ukraine. For what reason? And then the worst thing is we've had rail workers threatening to strike, complaining about the safety issues, warning something like this was going to happen. We see more derailments all the time, but this was a massive disaster. The media then lies about it and says everything's fine. The AP, if you think anything's wrong with the air water, you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist.
You know, you got to listen to these railway workers, man, and you got to look at these the rail tracks, because they get warped and bent. There's a video of it. I mean, they are beyond fathomably bent and warped, and the train's like bouncing.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah.
Crazy
It's not
video.
just like they get a little messed up and oops, it accidentally got blown off. Yeah, we got to pull this up. When you see how bad these rails can get, and you realize that if we don't, when they say we need to reinvest in our infrastructure, this is what they're talking about, is we need to pull these up and relay really new age, strong material. Look at this.
Is there sound on this thing? Yeah, there's sound. Let's we got it right. So for those that are just listening, we're showing you completely mangled and bent tracks. Is this even the U.S. though? ND and W Railway, Maumee, and Western?
Seems like U.S. Yeah.
ND.
People were this video was going viral. People were sharing it. This is from March 31st, 2017. But they were look at this. This is crazy.
It's in Michigan. It says
In Michigan.
Napoleon, Defiance, and Western Railroad is the ND and W.
Look at this.
So the train has to slow down like drastically even to get over.
Wow, look, it's at an angle.
But hey, $100 billion in Ukraine.
well, they really need it.
Well, what's the structure of those deals with Ukraine? Like, what are we owed after the fact? It's not just a straight donation.
Oh, like a lend-lease?
It's
Yeah,
funded.
what?
Oh, right.
But there is
black rockets to come in and divvy up the land.
That's what they did. The Americans in World War II is they lent the British so much money that they had them by the balls after the war.
Right.
And that's why America was so powerful after the war. They.
So are we sure this is in the U.S.? Where did it say Michigan?
Well, I see in the chat someone saying Maumee is in Ohio, so
This is the Michigan Southern
And this
Railroad.
is a Storyful video.
Yeah.
Storyful is owned by Fox News. So
Operates between Woodburn, Indiana, and Napoleon, Ohio. Compromises 58 miles of track.
yeah.
So it's not too far to expect that that's probably part of the issue.
Those are the conditions, yeah. And they said it was mechanical failure, and that the axle that was keeping them together caught fire, and they're taking it back to the national the NBT safety board, their lab to study and to say what's going to happen. And I just personally feel like we should have an independent investigator. Like, I don't trust the way the federal government's handling this, and I know that's such an easy talking point to say, but if their response is this is not really disaster, you guys don't qualify for support from the federal government, the air is fine, everything's good. How do we know that when they examine the axle that apparently caught fire, they're going to, they'll see it and be like, it really was just a fluke. It was actually Norfolk Southern. Like, it feels like a waste of time to let them test it themselves. Does that make sense?
I feel very black-pilled. Maybe black-pilled isn't the right word, because I think the difficult thing with talking about stories like this and seeing these two stories in contrasting each other. $100 billion to Ukraine, surprise visit by Biden, $500 million, and Americans suffering with no assistance. I think what were they offered, like $5? These contracts were given saying, shut your mouth and you get what you get. Seeing these things, and I'm just like, is it black-pilled or is it just realism? When we say things like, we can't assume this will get worse, because that would be being black-pilled. And I'm like, now is that just being naive? You know, a lot of people say don't be black-pilled, and I can understand, like, if the context is don't be demoralized, don't be, you know, I don't know, don't be demoralized. You know, you got to pick it up. You got to keep working. But what I see with stories like this, as I was saying in the intro to the show, is my priorities I feel a shift in my priorities. You know, is my priority now to go and warn people something's coming, or is my priority now to recognize that event right now at the beginning of 2023 is that's a lightning strike. That's a what's the right word?
Catalyst?
No. It's like it's a shot heard around the world kind of thing. It is that lightning strike, that massive explosion sound where you realize something is deeply wrong and it's not being fixed. Now, we can sit here and be like, now, everybody, we're going to get it next time. Don't you worry. And I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. Maybe these past midterms was some attempt at righting the ship. But when you have a government completely abandon a city in the East Coast, with now we're looking at potentially 5 million people affected downstream from this, not to mention the tens of millions downwind from it. We're downwind from it. And it's completely ignored. You're told to shut up. The media tells you to shut up. Half the voter base of the country doesn't care. I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's black-pilled.
You OD'd on culture war pills.
But it's not even about any of that. It's take a logical assessment of what just happened and then figure out what your logical move should be. And it's probably at this point like, wow, no amount of voting for a politician will change what just happened. Now, I'm not saying don't vote. I'm quite honestly, like, 2024 is going to be very, very important. It just means that it's probably going to be very bad, and that's something we will need to accept and prepare for. Then, you know, vote for Trump, I guess. I don't know.
I think
DeSantis is all right. I'll take either one at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing this happen makes me swing back towards Trump on this, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, the county that this is in, Trump won twice in a row, and he won it by more during 2020. I think that this sets the narrative for 2024 pretty clearly, right? I mean, Biden, if you look back at the withdrawal from Afghanistan, right, people already felt like he didn't care about how he was taking the troops out. He just wanted to be the president that took us out of Afghanistan, and it cost us. And now we're seeing again, how can he or any Democrat go on to say that we're the party of the environment when they would rather send money to Ukraine than to help a potential disaster in their own country? I feel like I can't comment on Trump versus DeSantis very clearly yet, but I know it becomes clear that the Democrats are they're not putting their money where their mouths are.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.